Now, while Super Mario Maker 2 is a genius game that's a lot of fun to play, it wasn't really a game that changed the industry. However, Super Mario Odyssey certainly did, with its new mechanics like Cappy, completely different locations, and of course bosses that we have never seen before. And these villains that you take on in this game will be the topic of today. Because while the Broodals are fun and all, we have never really decided which one is the best out of all of them. So today we will be ranking them to find out which one is the absolute best. Now, the Broodals are a group of rabbits who, apparently, make a living as wedding planners, which is a bit odd. They hail from the dark side of the moon, specifically a location known as Rabbit Ridge, where you will find a ton of others of their kind. And in this game, they're hired by Bowser to help with his pretty little wedding that was forced upon Peach. And so Mario stops them. Now, they are basically a more modern and a 3D version of the koopalings seen in older Super Mario and new Super Mario games. Personally, I actually like them a lot, and they're even better than a lot of the koopalings, depending on the game of course. But let's start from the bottom. When it comes down to it, Madame Brood is my least favorite out of all of them. She's the boss of the Broodals and is massive. Besides that, she's not that special to be honest. She attacks you with her golden pet chain chomp, which you have to take control of with Cappy and pull it all the way to the other side so you can shoot it back. Now she tries to catch you with her hand, but gets tired after a few swipes. So it's not that effective. Personally, I think the concept is cool, but in practice, it's quite boring, simple, and really easy. So thanks to that, I don't like it too much. It's certainly one of the most lazy and simplistic bosses in the entire game, even though it has one of the most fun and creative concepts. Now on to the next one, their bouncer Rango, who is tall and lanky looking as well as a bit wacky. His overall look is old-timey but also formal, which I actually like a lot. I would even say that he's one of the best dressed Broodals in the entire game. He has a certain charm in my opinion. However, his boss fight isn't that good and quite slow paced in my opinion, making it a bit boring to be honest. He attacks by throwing his hat like a boomerang, and it looks like a grinder. All you have to do is throw Cappy at it to flip it over, and then bounce on it to land on Rango. After stomping him, he will then partially withdraw into his hat and hop in pursuit of Mario. After a while, or if Mario stomps on the hat, he will start over. Over time, it gets harder and harder, however, never surprisingly difficult. Almost all players should be able to manage this fight. Sadly enough, the whole battle is a bit, dull, especially while you're floating in the air, slowly making your way to Rango. That section of the fight is just very slow-paced, which takes away from the whole experience, because it slows down time and time again. Sure, the portion where you stop his hat and try to dodge them is fun, but it's not extremely exciting. However, I won't say that it's a bad section. And right after that, it slows down, taking away a lot of the joy for me. And even the amount of attacks he can do is quite limited, and the ones he has aren't enough to carry the whole fight. So overall, he's certainly the most disappointing Broodal out of all of them. Now on to the next one on my list that's a bit better than this one, Speward, who certainly has one of the most interesting attacks, which reminds me a lot of Super Mario Sunshine. He's quite small and is the group's entertainer, dressed quite eloquently, has a bit of a 17th century look in my opinion, and also looks a bit like the koopaling Ludwig. Now he attacks by spewing poison around himself, and then he goes after you, which is certainly an interesting tactic. Now you can clear away the poison by using Cappy, and Speward's hat must be knocked off so that you can stomp on him. Each time he is hit, he retreats into his hat and spins around the arena, leaving trails of poison, coming out after a while or by stomping on him. Now this fight can actually be quite a challenge for some players, since this poison can end up all around the arena, turning it into a minefield. So as you can imagine, Cappy plays a gigantic role in this whole fight, because without it you're basically doomed. Now while I personally think the fight is actually quite good, there are a couple of things that I don't like about it. Mostly that the whole fight can become a bit chaotic and all over the place with the poison taking over the battlefield. Now don't get me wrong, it's good that they kept it in since it's the most important element of the entire battle. Now another minor problem I have with this fight is the wind up for his poison spewing attack, because you have quite a lot of time to jump on him while he gets ready. so you can cheese it a bit to be honest, which I personally don't like that much. But still, overall it's a good battle, and especially the section where he races over the ground in his hat, leaving poison behind, is very fun. Now on to our next Broodal, Topper, who is their leader, in charge of client relations, and completely dressed in green like it's St. Patrick's Day. Now when you fight him, he stacks 2 copies of his own hat atop his regular one, before skipping towards you. All joyful, ready to end your life. All that you have to do is knock off his hats using Cappy, but once they're knocked off, the hats will slide around, spinning like Koopa shells, and can actually hit you. He also has an attack where he spins along the ground level with his hats on his head, but it can make him dizzy, which is a good time to strike. Once all the hats are removed, he will be stunned, and you can finally stomp on him. Once that's done, he will do some spinning around, and then the whole thing starts over. Yet again, a vastly different strategy in combat. This fight is actually really good and plays in on an age-old mechanic in the series, which was never used like this in any game. In a ton of titles, we see Koopa shells sliding around after all, and they always pose a threat to you since they can and will hurt you. And here they use this overall concept to make an entire boss fight, because taking off the hats is your goal, but every time you do so, it will spin around the arena, making things harder and harder for you. Out of all the fights seen in the game, this is most likely one of the most challenging, since the chaos the hats create can be a lot to take in. Even the spin he does is extremely effective and can catch you off guard, being especially effective if he has a lot of hats on, which also gives you another reason to get rid of them ASAP, so his spin is less effective. So yeah, I absolutely love him, even though the amount of attacks he has is extremely limited. Hey, little side note, we have way more videos on the channel. For example, a video where we rank all the koopalings. Go check it out afterwards, together with the playlist. Now let's move on to our very last and best Broodal. One that has interesting and very original attacks, which we have never seen before. Harriette. She's the only female Broodal and wears a purple dress, gloves, pumps, a little hat, and also a little bow with it, and is in charge of the pyrotechnics. In the fight, she will throw bombs at you using her braids, which you have to knock back by hitting them with Cappy. However, these aren't just normal bombs, because when they explode, they leave puddles of lava behind, having a bit of a similar effect to the poison of Speward. After a while, if you haven't knocked back any bombs, she throws a much larger one which is attached to her hair and gets stuck in the ground, so that it can be thrown back easier. When she gets hit, her protective helmet will be gone, allowing you to jump onto her head to score a hit. Then she puts on a new helmet, withdraws her body into it, and starts flying around as a UFO, while dropping numerous bombs onto the battlefield, which can be countered by hitting one while she's flying above it. And as soon as that phase is over, it all restarts again. So as you can see, she has a lot of different attacks with all kinds of effects. Personally, I like the idea of a bomb-wielding maniac that you have to take on. We have never seen this in the series, even though bombs are seen a ton in Super Mario. The fact that you need to dodge a bunch of explosives is actually quite fun, and if you're one that takes risks, you will try to hit her with them. This can be quite difficult and therefore a fun challenge, and it can speed up the fight a lot as well if you manage to hit her. And then when it comes to the UFO section, it can be super satisfying to hit the bomb she drops as fast as possible, to end her reign of terror early. In general, with some good cap throwing skills and fast reflexes, you can take her out really fast without cheesing it in any way. So in general, the challenge she presents is great fun, all while the battlefield becomes more and more dangerous the more bombs she throws. However, what about those pesky koopalings I mentioned earlier? Which one of them is the absolute best? Well, I did a video on that as well, so check it out by clicking in the upper right corner, where there is even a playlist of it, because when it comes to this video, we are almost done. In the end, Harriette is the best, and overall the Broodals are great bosses, better than the koopalings even. They present a lot of new and interesting mechanics that we have never seen before, making them quite refreshing, although I would have liked to see a more interesting personality from them. But maybe we will actually get that in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to check out those videos I mentioned in the upper right corner and on the screen right now. Also, be sure to click the subscribe button and the bell button, like and comment, do all the things, please help out.